I'm here.
Okay, got everybody here now on 35174. And I'm looking away so I can open up my electronic file, which has all the documents and all of your exhibits. And we've got first we've got the claim by Mr. Malik, and then we have a counterclaim from Mr. Lorentzen. Let's see. Gender oath before we start here, 8917 versus 2208. All right, so Mr. Malik, why don't you raise your right hand, and do you swear or affirm the information you give the court today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Lorentzen, raising your right hand, you swear or affirm the information you give the court today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, all right. So, when did this counterclaim, I'm just trying to make sure everyone's got notice of what's going on here. You filed your counterclaim the 29th, Mr. Lorentzen. Were you able to get that served on Mr. Malik?
I paid a process server to take it to what I believed where he used to live, back in 2018, and they didn't contact me until the 2nd of February and told me that they weren't able to locate him.
Okay.
And then so I overnighted it from here to the Chula Vista, California.
Okay.
So and you're supposed to have received it on Wednesday.
All right.
So I know I was late, but
yeah. So Mr. Malik, you were able to, let's see, your notice. So Mr. Malik, when were you able to get notice to Mr. Lorentzen of your claim?
Just a moment.
You have that in here somewhere in your exhibit?
January 10th.
So
Yes.
you received that notice, Mr. Lorentzen? On
Yes.
January 10th? Okay.
Yes.
And there are several documents that Mr. Malik has filed with the court. Did you have a chance to review those as to that claim?
I have.
Okay. And so, Mr. Malik, you're in California?
Yes.
All right. You started the action, and I understand you may not or may have just recently received notice of Mr. Lorentzen's counterclaim. Did you ever get that?
No, I have not.
Okay. So that's a problem. I think what we need to do is reset the matter so that Mr. Lorentzen, you can get that counterclaim to Mr. Malik, and Mr. Malik then would have time to look at all of your exhibits as well and be prepared. I'm not going to take this piecemeal. It's better to take everything at once because the claim is about $9,000 and then your counterclaim is about $2,200 about this car repair. And so, oh, okay, great. So we're looking at, so Mr. Malik, are you still, you're Chula Vista, California on Otay Lakes Road?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we're looking at March 19. We're looking at March 19 as the earliest date to reset this to. Mr. Malik, you available?
Can I just accept the counterclaim?
Well, I'm not going to go forward without it being served and without you having an opportunity to look at what the heck it's all about in his exhibits.
I did
So,
look at it on the exhibit portal.
all right. So on the exhibit portal. All right. So you did review the counterclaim.
Yes.
All right. And I mean, it's up to you. I want to make sure that everybody's ready. I don't want anyone after this saying, wait a second, I would have brought some other information or provided something else if I had known. So the question is, Mr. Malik, I can set this to March 19th, give you some time to look at that counterclaim. If there's something more, then I need to have everything in the week before. Mr. Lorentzen, that's kind of where we're headed. I just want to be sure everybody's ready for trial and not feeling, oh, if I would have thought of it.
I looked it over. It's very simple. I I'm ready for trial.
Okay, Mr. Lorentzen, are you ready to go?
Ready?
Okay, all right. Well, then let's do this. Let me make a note here. All right, so Mr. Malik, we're going to turn to you first and ask, why do you think you owed $89.17? And as you look at things, you've seen the counterclaim, and you in all of this as well, you can kind of respond to that 2,200 that seems to be what Mr. Lorentzen thinks he's owed. And then if there's anything you want me to look at in particular in your exhibits, let me know so that we're all looking at the same thing. So
Okay.
what's your case?
Well, basically, I wanted some custom work done to my car, some aftermarket work. I put an ad online, and the defendant contacted me and said he could do it in 2 to 3 days, and that it would be $650 for the work. He mentions that price in the document titled Initial Contact Mail Conversation.
Okay. All right. Looking at that. So this is your Gmail discussion.
Yep.
About 13 pages worth. Is there somewhere you want me to?
On the initial page 1.
Okay. The beginning of your conversation
Yes.
on the 11th of February. Okay. So you must have been living here in Washington at the time?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And what car are we talking about?
It's a Honda Del Sol 97 VTEC.
All right. And at that time, you were the owner of that vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, get it done 2 to 3 days, about $650. All right. And so then what?
On page 3 of that same document, basically we discussed, and he was going to do some insulation in the vehicle. So he said it would be $700 if I bring my vehicle to his location.
Okay, 3 days and $700 more dollars. Is that what you understood, or
Yeah.
700 total?
Yeah, 3 days total, and $700 total.
Total, okay. So it went up $50
Yes.
and another, all right. And then what?
So I agreed to that, and I had a contract made. It's called Del Sol contract, which basically said I'm making an agreement with him, and basically he was going to be installing a wiring harness, electrical work, and then he would install some other electrical connections. He would install an alarm and accessories, which included a dash cam. And also to be installed is 3-layer insulation. And it said it would be done in 72 hours, and I would pay him cash on completion of the work.
And so the scope of the work is in here, and the time, the amount. So you would refer back to that email for the amount.
Correct.
Okay, but it wasn't in here. But where it'll be done, the scope of the work, and the time frame. Okay, all right, got it. And then?
So basically, if you look at the text conversation document.
Okay, here, text conversation, all right.
Basically on that initial page, I tell him I'm leaving to his house to drop off the car on the 15th of February.
Right.
Basically, we communicate about different things. He tells me he's not done. It'll take longer. On page 5, at the bottom, it says February 27th. He says he's sorry. He thought it was done and it'll be ready when I return from my trip, as I was leaving for a trip to a different country.
Mhm.
And he said it would be ready when I return. I was estimated I would be back in 2 weeks, but I ended up coming back in about a month or later. On page 6, it should be highlighted. I returned on April 6th. Or I returned on April 5th, and he replied on April 6th saying that the car was not done. So well beyond the 72 hours, about 2 months later, the vehicle was not complete. So I consider that a breach of contract.
Should I turn on the light?
And so, all right, so then you come back on April 6th, still not done. So you still haven't paid him anything?
No, the only thing I did was supply all the parts and materials.
That was the question. All right, so you did purchase materials that you gave to Mr. Lorentzen?
Yes,
Okay. And those were purchased around, sometime before the February 15th start date?
correct.
All right, and what did those things cost?
I don't have those in the evidence. I didn't include that in the claim.
Oh, okay, so that's not part of the claim. All right, so how do we get to the $8,900?
I took, if you look at the document called Expert Auto Invoice,
There?
basically says at the bottom, the total cost of repair is going to exceed the value of the vehicle.
Not, okay, is that in the, is it under labor description or?
Yeah, on the bottom of that.
Okay, all right, let me read that. Mhm. Okay, so you were advised at that point, $2,000 initial deposit required to begin. Estimate for final cost is not possible. Customer will pay $400 for 8 hours of work to this point. The shop labor, $100 an hour. No storage fees. If the car is removed within 2 days of March 5th, this goes back to 2019. Total cost of repairs is considered to exceed value of vehicle. There's several dates in here. December, so when was, I'm trying to figure out the dates on this. Okay, so this is April 30th of 2019. Can you help me understand other dates in here? December 11, 2018?
Where is that date listed?
In the very last, the second to last sentence in the description.
Oh, they had the car for a while. I guess they were really busy. And then when they finally got to working on the vehicle, it took them a while to sort through the damage.
So when did you take it in?
I believe sometime in December.
Okay, so you came back in April. It still wasn't done. So, and that was April of 2019.
No,
2018.
2018. I didn't take the vehicle until the end of 2018.
Okay, and then the end of 2018, you took it into. You got. Help me out here. So April of 18, it's not done. When did you get the vehicle back?
In October of 2018.
Okay, and then you went to see expert sometime in 2019.
In 2018, like in December.
Okay, so December, they say December 11th, you came in, removed the top. So sometime in December of 2018. Okay. All right. So what happened between April 6th and October, those 6 months?
Basically, if you look at the text conversation document, he basically said he wanted more time to work on it. On page 7, on April 18th, towards the middle of that document, I said it's already been, another 2 weeks since I've returned from my trip. So it's been about, 2 months and 2 weeks now, and he's still not done with the vehicle. So I just want it back.
All right.
He said it wouldn't be ready, it wouldn't be drivable, it wouldn't be back together. He won't require the full $600, but he's done work, so he wants me to pay him something. So I asked him on April 20th, still on page 7, which parts are done on the vehicle. He said the wiring harness was done. I told him I could pay for the things that were done, but I wanted to verify. On page 8 at the very top, he says he's not going to spend time showing me the things that work in the vehicle, and that I could either let him complete the car, I could come take it and pay him $300, or I could take legal action against him.
On April 24th, I was told not to touch the vehicle anymore by his attorney.
We'll have a chance. I'm going to hear from Mr. Malik
Okay.
first. All right. So then, and the vehicle is still with Mr. Lorentzen.
Correct.
Okay. You didn't, and so for 6 months it was there?
Well, I dropped it off in February and I got it back in October. So I don't know.
Right. So that's 8 months. But between April and October, so did everything just kind of break down, or is there?
Just a moment. So basically, if you look at, just a moment, the document titled Lawyer Letter.
So in May, you contacted a lawyer and they wrote a letter to Mr. Lorentzen.
Correct.
Okay. And negotiated, or Pro offered a way to settle things. So did you continue to try to work on after that, or
Yes.
solution?
Yes, that's correct. On The lawyer basically said he was, well, they suggested I just pay him $300 and take the vehicle. So I contacted him to ask him, you know, to get, make sure everything, like, so I wanted basically a contract stating, a signed paper stating what he actually did to the vehicle. Since I was paying him $300, I wanted to make sure I was paying him for something that he did. So he basically, you know, told me what he did. But on May 18th, he said the car was undrivable and I would have to tow it. I mentioned I would have a difficult time finding a shop on that same page, page 10. Most shops don't want to take over somebody else's work. So I had to call several shops and I didn't have much luck. So he lowered the price from $300 to $200. I mentioned to him I didn't have a place to store the vehicle since my house area does not allow for vehicles to be inoperable. So he offered to complete the vehicle for $500 total, and it'll be ready for me to take and drive. Still on page 10. And he even said himself at the bottom, nobody's gonna take off where he left off for less than $1,000. I told him I accept that on page 11. But he wanted me to pay him in advance. And I said I was not willing to do that. He threatened to put a mechanic's lien on the vehicle, still on page 11. I told him I did not want him moving the vehicle. Still on page 11. I ended up calling the police or the sheriff, and they visited him, and they basically told me it was a civil matter and they couldn't do anything. On page 11 towards the bottom, he then says on May 21 that he might just finish the car and charge me $12.59 for the work. I'm not sure where that amount came from. He then says my lawyer is garbage. I told him on page 12, I don't want to discuss this with him anymore. I made my offer and, you know, I'll talk to him in court. Again, we discussed more, and on page 12 from October 3rd, he mentions he will take $300 cash. I contacted him that I found a place to store the vehicle. So he said $300 cash, half of what we agreed. Then he says $400. A little bit below that. I contacted him to arrange getting a trailer to tow the vehicle. I wanted to visit the vehicle before arranging the tow, so I went to his location, inspected. On the 18th of October is when I did that. Or that's when I continued to talk. Just a moment. Yeah, 18th, which is showing on page 13 at the very bottom. I mentioned to him that, you know, the dash cam was missing. Some of the alarm modules and accessories were missing. So, you know, I was going to pay him the $300 as long as everything was there that I gave to him, and it wasn't. He said he has the box on page 14 for the dash cam. So then he throws out a number of $514 that I should pay him, but he'll take off $114. So bring it back to the $400. So again, more amount that he's just throwing around for me to pay him. On page 15, he talked about he was changing locations and he was going to move the vehicle. I told him I do not give him permission to move it. I said I would call the cops. He said, I already called them, you dumb fuck. They sided with me. Vehicle is not completed because you and your lawyer told me not to touch it, but I can legally transport it. He then says on page 15, towards the middle, he has 0 conviction, so he could steal my car, sell it, or torch it, and he would be out of jail on Monday. He's willing to spend a weekend in jail over this, or he could sell the car for $1,000, and that would be his bail money. Or maybe he'll just drive it and race it and blow it up. But there's no law against a man taking a mechanic taking a vehicle for a test drive. He continues to send lots of texts. At this point, I don't think I responded, as I did not want to engage with a hostile person. On page 18, the last page, he says that I told him not to touch the car, that I'm a nigger. What happened to your lawyer? And then at the end, he says I will never look at my car again. And I didn't respond to anything after that. I finally got the vehicle sometime later in October, and I called a few shops. Expert Auto was the shop that I finally got to accept the vehicle in its condition. I had it towed over there.
How did you end up getting the vehicle back?
I had it towed from his location,
Okay.
and then I had it towed to another location temporarily, and then I had it towed again to Expert Auto, so 2 tows. If you look at the Expert Auto invoice, it basically says the work that needs to be done, the wiring harness, which is electrical. They say the vehicle was towed in disarray, a lot of parts. It wasn't put together well. The catalytic converter was missing. The catalytic item is related to the exhaust muffler system, which is underneath the vehicle, and that has nothing to do with electrical work. So he removed that. Those exhaust items have a lot of copper in them, and they're commonly sold for money to junkyards. So he removed that, as well as missing hoses and other things were disconnected. And then, of course, the dash cam that was missing and the alarm accessories were all missing. So obviously I have no evidence of what he did with it, but perhaps he sold it. And then the shop basically said the repairs would exceed the cost of the vehicle. So I again towed the car from there to another location where it still remains in undrivable, incomplete condition.
All right, so so the 8917 refers to,
I had an appraisal done on the vehicle. Let me look at that. That was done in 2000, or no, sorry, that was the wrong appraisal. Just a moment. I had an appraisal done on the vehicle on August 7, 2017. I don't have that document in the evidence, so I didn't know it was needed, but I could send that to you now if you need that.
well, I'm wondering why you're claiming 8917. What, you gotta help me understand that.
That was the appraised value of the vehicle.
Okay, so you're asking for the value of the vehicle that from when you handed it, you're saying that it was worth 8917 when you handed it over to Mr. Lorentzen, and you got back something less than 8917.
It was actually worth more because I had more work done to it, but I don't have an appraisal, so I just accepted the 8917 appraisal.
Okay, and then, and so when the expert auto repair says total cost of repairs is considered to exceed value of the vehicle, did they give you a sense of what they meant by that? What the numbers were?
They said there was no way to know. The vehicle was just in so much bad condition. There was a lot of missing parts from areas where he had no reason to be, like engine. They said there could be possible engine damage, like sabotage and other things. And they basically would have no idea. They would have to do the wiring, and then they would have to look at the engine and other things. And they basically had no way of estimating that. And they said it would probably at least be more than the cost of the vehicle. So that's when I just decided to, accept that and not pay them anymore to try to figure out what was done by that by the defendant.
So did you give, you bought parts and provided those to Mr. Lorentzen, any other, you didn't give him any other cash or checks or payment other than the parts?
No, he asked for more materials after he had the vehicle, so I went and bought them for him.
Okay. All right. But what you're claiming is not that. What you're asking is the appraised value of the vehicle, which might, if experts to be believed, then it wouldn't get it back up to that appraisal value, but the value of the vehicle in 2017.
Yeah, I didn't have all the receipts for everything. So I just, I figured you needed evidence, and this was the evidence that I had that could prove the amount. So
Well, the appraisal, where was that done? How was that done? Who did it?
it was done by a company called Auto Loss. on the 7th, August 7th of 2017.
And why did you have that done?
I had an issue with my insurance. A repair damage. They didn't want to cover the correct amount. So I had a professional appraisal done to take care of that.
And so that appraisal was saying that on the, was it a market appraisal? In its shape as it was, if you were to go out to the market, you could sell it for $89.17?
Yeah. This particular, the Del Sol is a fairly common vehicle, but I had the 97 VTEC, which is pretty rare. The 97, because that was the last time they made it, and they didn't make many of the VTEC dual cam models, and I had a lot of work done to it. You know, exhaust system, the catalytic converter was new and aftermarket. The engine was modified. So basically all that was taken into consideration, and the appraisal company evaluated that it would be the 89.17 in the marketplace.
All right. Now I understand your claim better. Anything else before I turn to Mr. Lorentzen?
No, that was everything.
Okay. All right. So Mr. Is there any response you have to his counterclaim for 2208?
Well, as I was explaining my case, he was throwing a lot of random numbers out there for amounts that he wanted. So this amount that he threw out is another random number. We had originally agreed on $700 for the work. So how it became 4 times that much for work that was incomplete, stolen parts, breach of contract, and rendering the vehicle undrivable, I'm not sure where that amount comes from.
All right. So let me turn to Mr. Lorentzen. You've got a counterclaim, and you're also answering the claim of Mr. Malik. So why don't you go ahead?
That car was never ever appraised as over $8,000. I mean, Blue Book on it's between $900 and $1,500, and it had 300,000 miles on it. I mean, it was never worth nowhere near $8,000. But to start from the beginning, when he brought the car over, I was to install a wiring harness, a custom wiring harness for it, to do an electronic roof for it. And I asked him if there's 3 different generations of wiring after cars got computer systems in them. There's OBD0, OBD1, and OBD2. You can't mix the 3 together. The wiring harness that he had bought for his car was an OBD1 right-hand drive for single red cam automatic. And his car was a left-hand drive OBD2 dual red cam manual transmission. So there was no way for me to use the old style harness in the new style car. And he knew we were having problems, so I tried to integrate the old harness, that was the harness that he provided, into his original wiring harness that came in the car. And he knew we were having some difficulties just because it was, I mean, trying to put a old generation into a new generation car. And then he left on vacation and was gone for 5 weeks. So I figured he just wanted the car done. So I decided to completely make a wiring harness from nothing. And the day he got back, he came over and said that, or came over to the house to check the progress of the car. I showed him the wiring harness. I wasn't quite done yet at that point, but I showed him the wiring harness that I was building, and which I still have to this day. I still have the wiring harness here. And about 2 weeks later, his lawyer contacted me after he called the cops on me a couple times, and they told me not to touch the vehicle anymore. And
so do you agree
even got the car.
you agree the contract was for about $700 and 3 days work?
Yeah, but that was assuming that he had the right wiring harness.
Okay. And where, so why do you think you're owed 2,200 then? Help me out there. What's the 2,200?
600 for the wiring, 600 or 700 for the original work that I was to do to it.
Okay.
$218 for the connectors that I had to buy for the for the complete custom wiring harness I made, which was they were all brand new plugs from Honda. And it cost me $150 to send the wiring harness to Omega Leads after I received I paid $150 to this company Omega Leads where I mailed the wiring harness to on the 11th of January. And for them to just to look over the wiring harness, I guess they couldn't verify the functionality of it, but they could just to check out the construction of it. And it cost me $113 to overnight it to them. And then after April, I had the car stuck in the middle of my driveway from April till October, so some storage fees because they told me not to touch the vehicle anymore.
So the rest is storage fees?
Yeah, $7 a day, which
and
is
how much what is that?
That comes out to I don't know, I have it somewhere here. 660 bucks about, give or take.
All right. So that's your claim for 2,200, not quite.
Yes.
All right. All right. And so where, so apparently you thought there was there was this contract that I see you both signed for $700. Can you help me understand how you spent more? Why you spent more? Was there a recontracting? Was there information that?
Well, no, it was just he was gone for over a month, like five and a half weeks, and it was just the wiring harness that he provided was absolutely no good to me. It didn't work. It wouldn't work. There was no way to integrate it into his old harness.
Were there discussions with Mr. Malik about all of this?
There was at first, but then he left on vacation.
Okay.
He knew I was having trouble. He knew I was having trouble with the harness originally, that it wouldn't work.
All right. So I'm just trying to, in all the information that I have here before me, it seems to me that your contract was 700. It sounds like that's what that's the writing we have. And then you spent more and beyond that. And I'm wondering why. And did you think you were going to get recompensed for that? And why then?
Well, the wiring harness that I built, any company was charging $5,000 for this wiring harness. The $700 was just for the installation of the harness he provided, but the harness he provided did me no good.
Okay. So did you talk
So the rest is for
about
construction
that?
of the wiring harness
And
that I made.
Was there some new decision? Did you talk to him about that you
I didn't, because I couldn't get in contact with him because he went to Japan.
All right.
And I just thought he wanted the car done, so I just jumped the gun and just went ahead and built a wiring harness without,
Okay.
I guess, without verifying that's what he wanted done. But
Okay.
at that point, it was too far. I was too far in to turn back and reinstall his original wiring harness because it just wouldn't. It had been disassembled already to construct a new one, so I was too far in to turn back.
All right.
And I couldn't get in contact with him for like 5.5 weeks, so I just went ahead and made one.
So
and then by the time he got back, I still wasn't quite done with it because I got like over 150 hours into this wiring harness.
A lot more than you thought originally, 2 to 3 days.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So then Mr. Malik's claim of $89.17, you're disputing that car is worth that.
The car had 280,000 miles on it. It had a chunk of the whole quarter panel. It was full of Bondo and it had a whole chunk missing from it. That car was not worth, Kelley Blue Book values it like $1,510 on the high end, and that's being generous. The car was never worth that. Even after this whole conversion was done, it wouldn't be worth that.
Any comment on, if you want to, you don't have to, but the expert auto repair invoice?
Well, the car was torn apart, yeah, but he came and took it at 3 o'clock in the morning, so I didn't know he was coming after it that day. So I mean, it was complete in disarray, in disrepair. But
Okay.
I mean, I had to completely disassemble the car to remove the wiring harness. The whole entire, like every piece of wire came out of the vehicle.
So eight months after you started,
Well, they told me not to touch it after April. His lawyer told me not to touch the vehicle at all anymore.
I'll give you 2 months then. All right.
And then he came over on the beginning of October and stated he needed to measure the car or whatever to see see what size trailer he needed to transport out of there. And he just came with a friend of his just to try to intimidate me and tell me to, I don't know, that they were taking the car right then. They didn't come with a truck and trailer or anything. And then he knew what size to see what kind of size trailer it would fit on.
Okay.
And I did lose my temper at the end, between text messages there. I did, but I mean, I sat with the car in the middle of my driveway because he took the controller for the air ride, so the car sat completely on the ground, so I couldn't move it for 5 months, knowing that it was in the middle of my driveway. So I mean, I got irritated, yeah, but
Just trying to figure out what your contract here was. All right. Is there any, you've supplied some pictures and a letter.
Those are all the wiring harness that I still have the wiring harness. It's sitting right here.
Okay. The one that you purchased or?
No, the one that I built. The
one that you built. Okay. And then what's the letter from Omega guy? What am I to take from that?
That's the 5th company that I contacted, and I tried to explain the situation about me building a wiring harness for him and him I guess this was the only company that would hear me out. So I mailed him the wiring harness. He's down in California. I mailed him the wiring harness and he looked it over and he said it was well constructed.
All right.
I mean, Grant, he charged me $150 just to check the wiring harness out, but
okay. All right. So he says that obviously, since he doesn't have a Del Sol, he's not able to really figure that out, but give it a quick look. Quality, no way to test functionality, but able to test for resistance and confirm. All right. Well planned out, nicely executed, good materials. Okay. All right. So, and that's you took up to build that harness, and those are some of the costs. The $200, $300, $400, $500, almost $500 worth of cost to build that, it looks like, and the mailing back and forth and all of that. All right. So I have a question, Mr. Malik. This expert auto repair, was this the $435 you paid them? What was that for?
For them to basically check everything out and tell me how much it would cost to fix.
Okay.
Like that was the deposit or estimate or cost to even take the vehicle in and look at it.
Okay. So that was just the estimate cost. All right. All right. Kind of look through some of this. So, all right, we've got a claim and a counterclaim here. Looking at all the information that you both provided and what I've heard from you both. So Mr. Malik is asking the court to assess the appraisal rate from 3 years ago, the market value 3 years ago, that he received, and Mr. Lorentzen is asking for the $700 originally contracted for, and then on top of that, storage fees and what it costs for him to build the new harness. All right, and then in looking at the expert auto repair estimate, what it's difficult to do here is to kind of come down and accept number here. So I think we agree, I can see that we agree that the contract was for $700 and 2 to 3 days of work. It's not clear, and I don't think it's fair to say that the contract included. I mean, Mr. Lorentzen, you spent that money on your own accord. The about 500, 218, 115, 113, you spent that on your own accord. It wasn't this contract apparently, and you just kind of made a decision without getting that determined that that's what Mr. Malik wanted. So I'm not giving that to you. The $700, 2 months, and then 8 months, and then it's in this disarray. The breach of contract, I'm not granting your $700 nor storage fees. So I'm not granting the counterclaim in any way, dismissing that, given the breach of contract originally. And as I said, you took up work of your own and made these decisions of your own without making a contract, again, with Mr. Malik. And Mr. Malik is asking for about $8,900 for an appraisal rate from 2017. And I'm looking at what Expert Auto Repair is saying. They're saying that to put the car back together, it's going to be $2,000 down, and then it's going to be more expensive to put it back together than it's worth. And they don't give me an understanding of what they think it's worth anywhere here in 2019, 2 years later. So what I'm going to do is there is some equity that this court can do, and I'm making a judgment against you, Mr. Lorentzen, of $5,000 given
He took it to them.
and I'm not hearing argument anymore, Mr. Lorentzen. I've made the decision. This is appealable if you'd like. Now, I guess Mr. Lorentzen is gone. And the filing fee, Mr. Malik, and did it cost you any money for service?
It was about $20 for that.
Was that about? Can you give me?
Oh yeah, but it was 20.
And that was for what? For mailing for the sheriff? I can't quite remember how you did that.
I found somebody locally online.
And they charged you $20.
Yeah, I offered the $20 to do that, and they accepted that amount and served it.
All right. Well, we're got someone back with Mr. Lorentzen. So following trial, $5,070, and this order, this judgment is in the court file, and then it's up to you, Mr. Malik, to take it from there.
I had a question, if that's all right.
Sure.
If I submit like current receipts of work done and everything, like I had recent work done as well.
Your claim is heard. What you claimed here today has been decided.
Okay.
All right, against Mr. Lorentzen. So, and I can't give you legal advice as what you're gonna do next as to anything you've got. But as to what you claimed today, that's decided.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. So you can leave our hearing.
All
And
right.
then, have we completed everything? All right, so we're adjourned for the morning, actually.